Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here for another episode of WAM Headlines, latest breaking news that I can get to. Of course, I live edit this stuff. By the way, this is my 11th episode of this, so it's doing better than the WAM show, which I edited and, did pre-production on a couple years ago. But I'm always happy to be able to connect with all the great people that watch us here at WAM and send us their questions. I will be taking questions later on in the show. However, first, as I always lay out before I get into it, I do these little things called Freedom Minute Updates. So basically, I'll do three reports, four reports, sometimes five in other cases when I have a lot of time on my hands, which isn't often. And we will do these videos and I'll edit it live while doing them, which is very difficult, I may add. And then I post them later as separate little reports. So don't go away when I wrap up those little reports because I'll still be here. I'm not going anywhere, and I will be taking your questions after we're finished with the reports today. Today I'm going over a diverse level of subjects. I think we're going through gun rights, UFOs, which is something I've never talked about here at WAM, and gold markets, etc. We've got... we're kind of touching on politics, conspiracy, and the monetary system at the same time. So it's going to be an interesting show. So as we have people coming on the chat here, I will be starting in a moment. Dick Diddy says, will WAM be at the Red Pill Expo? Absolutely, we will be at the Red Pill Expo. Make sure to check our link. I believe we have it in the description for the Red Pill Expo. We have an affiliate code. I believe it is Sigurdson, Sigurdson, and you will save, I think, about 10% on your tickets or more. You'll have to check on that. But yeah, it's coming up on June 21st to 23rd, and I will be actually interviewing G. Edward Griffin once again tomorrow on the show. So stay tuned for that. It'll probably be up in 2 days, considering I'll be interviewing him tomorrow. Gotta put some fancy editing tools in there. But anyway, so we are going to get to the news. Dirk Lutz says, why don't you answer on STEEMIT? Well, I get a lot of messages, and I work 18 hours a day. I can't answer everyone. I don't know what exact post you're referring to. I do answer to a lot of messages on STEEMIT. Anyway, so I'm just going to get to it. Let me just load up my editing stuff here. It's so difficult to edit live. Anyway. All right. Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here for another Freedom Minute update. And let's see what we got today. Toronto violent crime and gun violence is skyrocketing. For far too long, we've heard the pro-gun control crowd act as if Canada is a shining beacon of gun control. People watch, Bowling for Columbine by Michael Moore and believe no one in Canada locks their door. The truth is, most big cities in Canada have an incredibly high crime rate, and unless you're in the middle of nowhere, if you're a Canadian, you likely lock your door. Gun control in Canada is vicious. As this CTV News article notes, in the span of 12 days, there have been 5 homicides from gun violence, and in May alone, there were 52 shootings in the city. As of May 27th, there have been 162 shootings in Toronto this year, an 11% increase from the same time last year, according to the Toronto Police Service. And as this City TV article notes, gun violence in downtown Toronto up 167% so far in 2018. Here's an there's been a dramatic increase in gun violence in the downtown core in 2018, with the number of shootings up 167% this year compared to the same time last year. Here's an interesting chart showing gun violence in downtown Toronto from January 1st to May 31st over the last several years. Keep in mind, the crime rate is still far lower than in places like Winnipeg, Manitoba. Vancouver, British Columbia has one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in North America in East Hastings. Surrey, British Columbia has had countless murders over the past several years as well. This barely scratches the surface. The point is, when studying FBI and NSC statistics throughout the decades, it is a proven fact that places with open carry and concealed carry are far safer than places with gun control. Far less rape, murder, theft, assault, kidnappings, and the list goes on. If one is to be anti-violence, they must be pro-defense. Instead, far too many depend on the state to keep them safe and take the guns. Meanwhile, the government is the greatest mass murderer in human history, killing hundreds of millions in just the last century alone. So, the most dangerous organized crime gang in history should be trusted with all the guns? Let's ask Germans, Russians, Chinese, Venezuelans, and Cubans how that worked out for them. Bad guys are not going to hand in their guns. Just gullible, weak, law-abiding people. A defenseless public is a weak, subservient public. Don't fall for the sob stories and the conditioning. Guns are tools one may use in order to defend themselves and gather food if necessary. We all hope they don't need to be used. But it's better to have and not use than have and need. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, so we're done with our first report. Just checking in here. It's really difficult to live edit, so excuse the little hiccups. Those disappear magically through the magic of editing when I post them as separate reports, you may notice. So you get a bit of a backstage kind of look at how things are done here. Not professionally at all is how they're done. Anyway, so we have quite a few people commenting. Always good to see all the people tuning in. Let us know where in the world you're from. I'm always interested to see that. Before we get to our next report, just got to cool down a bit because this next one is a bit more difficult to edit live. A lot of clips in it. So anyway, let's see. Just getting rid of all these pop-ups on YouTube. YouTube suddenly came out with all these pop-ups that are driving me nuts. Okay, Dario Nakic is from Sweden. That's awesome. I'm sure John Snyson from Norway would love that. But let's see, we got Greg Hill is watching from Freedom Free For All. Make sure to watch their show. Just check out Freedom Free For All on YouTube and subscribe. Make sure to like this video, by the way. It helps get the news out to more of an audience while it's live, which is definitely helpful. Gets us more subs. And yeah, our subscriber basis is going up insanely fast. It's unbelievable. It's on an average of about 1,400 to 1,500 subscribers a week, so it's awesome. Of course, Greg Hill's from Victoria, BC. Pierre-Olivier Dumont is from Quebec. Matthew Frederick MFKRZ is from North America, he says. Let's see. We got Winnipeg, another Winnipegger here from Winnipeg Enlightened for Truth. Awesome. Good to see fellow Winnipeggers tuning in. We definitely need it in a very apathetic city such as Winnipeg. Anyway, the March Hare says from Northern Virginia. Very good to see people from Virginia. I've always wanted to go there, and someone mentioned South Africa before. I definitely want to go there. I got to be a little careful these days, but definitely want to check out South Africa. And Sunrise Skywalker says, what's happening in Tucson? Operation Backyard Brawl, Save the Children. Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on that right now. I'm trying to gather a bunch of information, and I'm also trying to back up a whole bunch of the information so that it doesn't get taken down and erased from the internet forever. So that's a big one. Make sure to download all their videos and save them on backup drives and stuff like that on USBs. Just try to protect the footage. I'm definitely looking into that. And then we got Scotland, UK, Stuart Ogilvie, I think it says. And yeah, we got a lot of people here. Anyway, so on to the next story. Here we go. Let me just get... and I'm from Phoenix. Okay, I got to stop getting distracted by the chat. I will be talking with all of you soon on the chat after I'm done a couple more reports. So, time to start the next Freedom Minute. Okay. Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here for another Freedom Minute update. And now this is an incredibly strange story, so brace yourselves. A new Pentagon report recently released chronicles the unusual and terrifying events that took place around the USS Princeton in 2004. Yep, we're talking about UFOs today. The Pentagon report speaks of an anonymous aerial vehicle shaped like a Tic Tac that stalked the Ticonderoga class-guided missile cruiser for days before vanishing into thin air. As it says, the object, which could reportedly hover in mid-air and make itself invisible, bamboozled U.S. Navy fighter pilots during a training exercise in the Pacific Ocean. In November 2004, the ship's ultra-advanced AN Spy-1 multifunctional phased array radar caught the object hovering at 60,000 feet before nosediving to the ocean surface in a matter of seconds. It then sped off so rapidly that crew members thought it was a ballistic missile. It appeared again 2 days later, and a pair of high-tech F-18 jets were scrambled to intercept it, but pilots reported that the object had turned itself invisible. It could still be detected as it was triggering a circular disturbance in the water about 50 to 100 meters in diameter. The craft was described as solid white, smooth, with no edges, uniformly colored with no nacelles, pylons, or wings, and looked like an elongated egg or a Tic Tac, according to one of the pilots. Days later, a second jet spotted the same disturbance, and this time saw the UFO hovering above it like a Harrier or a jump jet. When the two pilots returned to the ship, crewmates put on tinfoil hats to greet them and asked eager questions about their quote-unquote UFO flight. The report adds that the USS Louisville nuclear attack submarine was operating in the area but reported no disturbance. An E-2C Hawkeye surveillance plane managed to detect the object but was unable to lock on, suggesting that it was able to dodge radar. It adds that the craft matches no known aircraft or air vehicle currently in the inventory of the United States or any foreign nation. Now that we're done the article, let's keep in mind that there's no evidence that it's aliens or anything. But with that said, that would make more sense than about anything else one could think of. Then again, the U.S. military has unthinkable technology we may not learn of for more than 60 years, if ever. Much like the classified stealth fighters around for decades before we learned about them in the 90s. This could also play into ancient civilizations that I've explored in the past on this channel, and the potential that there are secrets hidden regarding an advanced human civilization about 10 to 12,000 years ago, before a massive global cataclysm. I've theorized that with all the out-in-the-open cover-ups happening in the antiquities departments in Egypt and refusal to acknowledge massive findings, including Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which predates Stonehenge by 7,000 years and is insanely larger, it's possible that incredible technology has been recovered and utilized by the state in secret. This is the same government that seized most of Tesla's papers after he died, and many while he was still alive. And now this is all theory, so make of it what you will, but make sure to let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll likely do a far more in-depth report on this in the future. But until next time, once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right. So I instantly hiccuped over a few edits at the very beginning of the video, so hopefully that doesn't pose too much of an issue. I hope everyone was able to stay with it because, like I said, it's really hard to edit live, and there are a whole bunch of mistakes that can be made, ladies and gentlemen. So that's coming down to the magic of editing later on when I have to deal with that. But all the same, it's easier to quickly do this online and then cut them out after than doing all these videos as separate reports. Besides, it allows me to talk with you, the people watching these videos. So anyway, I will be taking a Q&A after this last news report, Freedom Minute update. So don't go anywhere, and I will be checking out the chat in a moment. So last but not least, hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson. Oh, clicked too soon. Here we go. Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here for another Freedom Minute update. Is there a massive power shift happening with the use of gold? As Germany recently repatriated the second largest amount of gold in history from the US Fed, as China is stockpiling gold, Russia has been attempting to corner the market. As this Zero Hedge article mentions, Russia is set to double gold mining, becoming the world's second largest gold producer. Gold has been wealth insurance alongside silver for thousands of years. Never mind a gold standard, gold as it stands, without IOU notes and debt, has scarcity, application use, and demand, and its worthiness is like so many times before being noticed once again as the global fiat system falters and the global banking system and stock markets reach peak pressure within their bubbles, reaping the consequences of insolvency and debt. Russia has been selling off U.S. treasuries for years while stockpiling up gold, likely anticipating the fall of the U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency, something that is inevitable, though impossible to put a date on due to fundamentals being off the table. The manipulation is simply too enormous to predict. Russian reserves are now in their 39th consecutive month of additions. Despite this, Russian gold mining companies are looking to double their monetary arsenal. As this says, Russia is currently the world's third biggest gold miner after Australia and China. That could change in less than a decade, according to Mikhail Leskov, Deputy CEO at the Moscow-based Institute of Geotechnology, as quoted by Vedomosti. The boosting of mining output would also make Russia a gold export powerhouse. In 2017, Russia extracted 8.8 million ounces, accounting for 8.3% of global production, according to consultancy Metals Focus. The newly discovered gold deposits will reportedly allow miners to increase extraction by half in 7 years, and by 2030, extraction is expected to grow by nearly 8 million ounces. The article continues, but anyways, there seems to be a battle between global superpowers. The US, China, Germany, India, and Russia. Canada's not trying, as it obviously has sold basically all of its gold and is bending the knee, while Venezuela looks like it'll be out of gold by next year at some point. The US is ready to collapse and is desperately attempting to raise interest rates to avoid the inevitable negative interest rates. China and India are attempting to become a global force for centrally planned digital currencies, enslaving people to the banking system and government, though China is really building up their gold holdings as well. Germany is holding massive amounts of gold in preparation for something, though it's hard to say what. While all these states allegedly fight it out, it's most important that you, as an individual, are prepared. A populace in debt is a populace in servitude. Decentralize everything, folks. Rule yourselves. While this is not investment advice and simply opinion, it's probably smart to own gold, silver, and decentralized cryptocurrencies with true fundamental value. If you don't understand money, money will control you. If you understand money, you control the money and you avoid being a debt slave like the rest of society. Anyways, thanks for watching another Freedom Minute update. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right. Okay, so on to the... oh, wait, I think I'm done now. Okay, good. So now I can take comments or questions from people watching live. I will be answering as many questions as I humanly can. I'm just really happy to be done with the Freedom Minute updates for now because I've been having a difficult time reading the tiny print halfway across the room while I'm editing live. Anyway, so let's see what we got here in the live chat. The March Hare, don't laugh, Josh. Don't picture wieners. Come on. What? Okay, root waves, be the change, absolutely. What do we got here? Any questions? Send in your questions. Tell the truth, spare some change, says EK. All right, then. Randy McMurphy says, I like Litecoin too. I like it. I've always seen it kind of like the silver to Bitcoin's gold. However, I mean, I think it's undervalued, but I think that it's also been very disappointing over the last couple of years compared to most other major cryptocurrencies, though that can show potential. It's not like it's crashed. It has the potential, future potential of the use of the Lightning Network, which is huge. Charlie Lee is definitely a visionary, but it's not my favorite cryptocurrency. I'm pretty excited right now about EOS, but EOS is in its, I think, moving towards a dip. It went up 25% yesterday, so it was definitely an interesting day, but can't really move it. And now I think that the tokenization is finished. I think that there is a potential for a big dip before we see its incremental climb up to 100 or 150 in the next year and a half or so. It's hard to say. It's really hard to speculate cryptocurrencies because it's a free market competing currency system based on individual demand. It's not manipulated to death. I mean, there is manipulation in every market, even the decentralized one, when it comes to bankers and governments trying to mess with the price, and it fights, spilled out into the mainstream media, which is a huge issue. But overall, I think that we are in for a good couple years. Decentralized blockchain hasn't really quite seen its true potential yet. And then we'll move on to the next big thing after the blockchain. I don't know what it's going to be. It's hard to say right now. I'm excited for innovation in that market, though. John Knight says, if the crypto exchange collapse and close, why would anyone trust crypto? Well, what does that have to do with crypto? Do you not trust gold if your bank collapses and they take all your gold? Don't put your money in an online exchange. It's as simple as that. It's an exchange. It's unsafe. It's unsafe for you to keep your money in a bank with fiat as well. Don't trust centralized organizations and businesses to keep your wealth safe, because they won't, and they're very hack prone, all these online exchanges, which is why I would never keep much in an exchange unless I'm just quickly exchanging something. So the point is mute. Sorry. I mean, it's just you can't say that a business makes the thing bad. Like, for example, a restaurant gives you food poisoning. Does that mean you have to do a crusade against all food? No, you just don't go to that specific restaurant anymore because they gave you food poisoning. You don't blame crypto for people voluntarily putting your crypto into the hands of a business that could easily be hacked and lose all your money. It's just not smart. Dick Diddy is incredibly wrong in saying Bitcoin is fiat, just a new kind. Okay. I go over this in every live report and in all the comments of all of my crypto videos. It's really frustrating. So fiat is centrally planned legal tender currency enforced by law, and there's no cap on creation, it just goes up inevitably for eternity. They just create vast amounts of it, quantitative easing, fractional reserve lending, etc. Bitcoin is based in the same thing that gold is: scarcity, demand, and application use. They have a cap on creation. It's not enforced by law. It's not legal tender. It'll be 21 million coins by the year 2140. It's halved frequently. It's impossible to compare Bitcoin to fiat because they are two completely different entities by definition. Now, you say it's backed by nothing. Well, gold is backed by nothing. People say it's physical value. No. Value is subjective based on the individual. Lots of things are physical but don't have value necessarily. It's based on the individual demand. So looking at something like gold and silver, it's scarce, it's in demand, and it has application use. That's what brings it value. Dick Diddy just elaborated and said Bitcoin is digital currency. Well, yeah, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's blockchain, there's digital currency, there's Bitcoin, and we have to understand there's a difference between all of them. They all have common characteristics, but they're not the same thing. You can use blockchain if centralized to enslave humanity. You can use blockchain if decentralized to overthrow that which enslaves humanity because it's decentralized. The key word is decentralization. Okay, so you say gold is money, it retains value without the need for a bank. Well, but you don't need a bank for crypto. You have hard wallets, you have paper wallets, you have these little, for example, Ledger Nano S, which is off the grid completely, and you don't need a bank for crypto. I don't know what you're saying. You keep it in an offline wallet. Simple as that. Don't put it in an exchange. Just like you don't need to put money in a bank. It's just laws are pushing that on you, and you're forced to use fiat as legal tender currency. No one's forcing you to use Bitcoin, and no one's forcing you to put Bitcoin in a bank. It just doesn't. Look, you're coming at it from a perspective that I once went at it with when I first found out about Bitcoin. There's no such thing as intrinsic value. Value is subjective. I love gold, I love silver more than cryptocurrency. However, to say its intrinsic value is to assume that without humans, it has value. Humans put value on it subjectively based on its fundamentals. So fiat has no core fundamentals. It's just based on faith. The fact that people have faith in it for some reason or another is the reason that it has any value, quote unquote. But of course, that value will inevitably crash down to nothing. It's legal tender laws, quantitative easing, just printing out of thin air, creating vast amounts of debt. But Bitcoin and gold are based in the same fundamental value, which is scarcity, application, demand. He says, is there any real money in the Bitcoin vault? What Bitcoin vault? In the gold vault? In the whatever vault? It's based on scarcity, application, demand. It's not based on physical value. There's no such thing. I thought there was such thing for a long time, but there's no such thing. To say anything has physical value, again, you have to assume that a horse would like to use gold to trade for something. No, if without humans, there is no value to it, and humans bestowed on that metal a value because it's been traded for thousands of years. As it's very scarce because it takes a sun exploding, a supernova, to create gold. And to artificially create gold, it costs more money to create it than you get in profit selling it. Okay, now you say Bitcoin is not backed by physical value. I've gone over this. There's no such thing as physical value. It's scarcity, application, demand. Why do you think copper is worth so much less than gold? You can have the same weight of it, but it's less scarce. It's less useful. There's less demand for it. I could take a big piece of tin foil and then take the same weight in gold. The gold is going to be worth more than the tin foil because there's more use for the gold. It has scarcity, application, demand. Physicality has nothing to do with it. Let's see. Anyway, I've got a few comments here. I'm just looking at it. EK says gold, color of the sun, silver, reflective and antibacterial origins. Well, yeah, the silver is good through natural healing processes as well, but it's also put in a lot of electronics, as is gold. It's used a lot. It's used for jewelry. It's used for luxury. It's highly sought after. It's very rare. It's very scarce. Jangolese Massive says, I would argue that copper is more useful than gold, a lot more. You could say that. I would technically agree with you, but in comparison to the scarcity of it, it is not relative. Like if you say that it's more useful than gold, sure enough, it can be. It can be used in a lot of things, obviously, and there's value there. But in comparison with how much copper exists and then how much gold exists, the value just doesn't match up. It doesn't level out because gold is so much more scarce than copper. There's so little of it. Dick Diddy says, yes, there is value, physical value. The bag of beans will physically keep you from starving to death. Bitcoins won't because they have no physical value. Okay, when we're talking about survival, say food, water, shelter, there's survival value there. And yes, you could trade beans as currency. They have value as in you can eat them to survive. So obviously there's value there. But to compare that with gold and then Bitcoin, you can't eat gold either. You can't eat Bitcoin. But gold and Bitcoin can be used in trade in order to get those beans. So in a situation like, for example, a massive world war breaks out, we're pushed into the dark ages, but of course there's alternative grids. Many are being established, wireless energy, etc., like what Tesla dreamed of, which allows you to continue to use a network with your Bitcoin, etc. You can, instead of going out and killing people for food and sustenance and shelter, because let's face it, the vast majority of people don't know how to survive off the grid. They'd be wiping their ass with pine cones. They wouldn't know what to do. In order to avoid having to go out hunting and harvesting every single day to survive, people will want to trade goods for services, or goods for goods, or services for goods, etc. So in that case, gold, exchange it for food. Bitcoin, exchange it for food. Now, there is a theory that Bitcoin wouldn't exist if the grid went down, but that's subjective to people's opinions because, of course, there is a lot to be said about the alternative grids that I mentioned earlier popping up throughout the world that is actually very innovative, and I believe that it will be ready and in place by the time that such an event happens. Dick Diddy says a silver coin can make for you a simple spoon. It has physical value. Digital currency doesn't. No, you are looking at the application use. A silver can be created into or made into a spoon. That's application use. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Scarcity, application use, demand is what brings value. That's not physical value, that is application use. You can use Bitcoin as an application use to be able to get through decentralized outside of the banking system, outside of the government. You can use it in order to trade at a fast rate without a centralized source, without having to worry about the middleman, without people being able to fraud you, like PayPal, for example. You spend money on something, or you send a product and you get money in return, and then that person can easily just go throughout the security. This is a very regulated industry, by the way, and then say, I didn't authorize that, and they automatically give to the other person, refund them, and then charge you a massive amount of money for whatever you sent. Something that happened to me. They totally defrauded me, and that was a centralized source. With Bitcoin, you can avoid that centralized source and avoid getting defrauded, except for with your own personal individual responsibility that you must, as an individual, not do something stupid and think things through before you do it. But everything has risk after all. Oh my God. Real money has physical value. That's the definition of real money. Real money is transportable commodity. Real money is subjective. You cannot say that something has physical value unless you subjectively say that that has value. You, as an individual, are giving it value. You are bestowing value upon that physical good. It's not the physicality that makes it valuable, though it adds to people's application use demand. It isn't that which actually gives it the value. It's scarcity, application, use, demand. Those are the main functions of value in society. Just like the internet is valuable because it's something that people can use as an application use and it's in demand, and you can decentralize the internet very simply by using different proxies and offline, or you can use different innovations. I'm not a tech guy, so I don't know the words for it, but things like Tor and other useful tools on the internet to decentralize. If it physically exists, it has physical value. Human feces don't have value. I'm pretty sure people would pay to get rid of it. There are a lot of examples of things that physically exist but don't have value necessarily, but based on the scarcity, application, use, and demand. Again, something I've gone over a few times already in the last few minutes. But again, subjective value, intrinsic value, physical value, different things. Intrinsic and physical go into one category, and it's based in subjective value. So you can't exactly say that something has physical value unless you... Ron Paul says the same thing as I'm telling you here now. Yes, and I believe he's wrong on it. I know Ron Paul says that, and I believe he's wrong. It's an outdated idea because people dodge the fact that people as individuals or a collective have to bestow value onto that said item. So you can't say that it has value without individuals saying it has value. Anyway. A lot of people are saying he's stirring the pot. Well, I appreciate his debate. I'm going to move on to the next thing, though, because I've been talking about this for a while, and I need to take other questions. So what do we got here? Einsteinium. I don't know much about Einsteinium. Jeffes and may I make it perfectly clear that I think that probably 95% of cryptocurrencies are terrible because they don't have the fundamental value of scarcity, application, demand, which is something that I can preach to the moon. Amit K. Bacharji says, will not the EMP wave expose, vaporize a blockchain currency vulnerability? Absolutely, there is risk to that. There's also a risk that an asteroid could hit the planet and destroy all of Earth, and with it, a lot of the gold. I mean, it's the last thing you'll really be thinking of in that kind of case is my Bitcoin. It'll be, oh my God, I need to survive and build things and construct things, which is why I've always said that I actually prefer gold and silver over cryptocurrencies. In the case that you as an individual survive some massive blast, the last thing you'll be thinking of is your Bitcoin. You're going to be thinking about things like, for gold and silver, their value to actually help people preserve wealth through an apocalypse, and then with cryptocurrencies, their ability to preserve wealth and create more wealth. However, be an agent in bringing down the centralized structures we know as central banking systems, governments, etc. War, media, the decentralized blockchain has an answer for most things, and its potential has hardly been met. You can do so much with cryptocurrencies and with blockchain especially in order to take down the government, take down the central banking system, and create alternatives, including guaranteed basic income without people being taxed, without people being extorted, for this thing to create wealth and provide without anyone losing money, without anyone being aggressed against. Very interesting ideas that are arising right now in that kind of sphere. Let's see, STEEMIT Surfer Review says, somebody on STEEMIT claimed that STEEMIT is now the largest blockchain out there. Don't know if that's true. Safety in numbers. Well, I know that Steem was the highest volume traded cryptocurrency in 2017. Not sure about the biggest blockchain. It'd be hard to I've never actually seen that. Gas prices. Okay, so King Dupe 101 says, what are gas prices now in the peg? It's $1.32 a liter here in Alberta. Yeah, it's $1.20 something, I think. It's been a lot. It's been up and down. I can't remember the exact amount. The last couple times I filled up, I just didn't even think about it. I didn't even look. I just went, paid the money, filled it up, and left. It's to a point where it's just so insane. And now government is practicing their communistic future agenda by buying out the Keystone or the Kinder Morgan pipeline. The idea that government can first start by taking over corporations, manipulating corporations, aka fascism, and then end by being the corporation, aka communism, which is a serious problem right now that we're seeing arise. Dick Diddy says, what about Tommy R? Yeah, I've been talking about him loosely on and off. I did in my last Q&A. Went into him quite a bit. Tommy Robinson, of course, had prior charges, was arrested. Total insanity. I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, but the fact that he's in jail right now is just totally sickening. Though I will say that the images that we've been seeing coming out in a lot of Facebook posts and memes of him being beaten up is actually from 2014, from when he was in prison at that time. But all the same, it's absolutely sickening. He shouldn't be in prison. And the fact that people that try to expose rape gangs get thrown in prison. And we've seen back in, I think, 2012 to 2015, lots of stories coming out about British police covering up this situation. And now we're seeing what we're seeing in Tucson with child sex rings being found underground prison cells for children. Absolutely disgusting. Something, again, like I said earlier on, that I'm looking more into. Okay, so Pork Chop says, crypto is dark money, leads to dark places. Why would any of us want to go this way? Aaron Schwartz is familiar with his name. Aaron Schwartz, I had spoken with him before he died years ago. As for what he said about dark money, so they keep saying that cryptocurrency is dark money. So let's see. They say it funds terrorism. Well, 99.9% of all currency used to fund terrorism is fiat. So let's say fiat is actually dark money. It's a legal tender. And let's see, mostly government funding terrorism. So that's another big issue. And then they say it's used for money laundering when almost all money laundering is done in cash, fiat, because it's stupid to do it with Bitcoin because everyone can see your transactional records and it leads a path right to you. So I think that's a mainstream media point that is absolutely wrong and incorrect, that it's quote unquote dark money. Dark money makes it sound like it's evil or something, that people want to protect their wealth. Dark money makes it sound evil or something, that people don't want to be enslaved in debt by a massive centralized banking system throughout the world. For example, the centrally planned cashless society that's being unrolled, if anything, that's dark money because all your money is going through the banks. So if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's. And if all your money is going through the banks via digital transactions, legal tender laws, that is dark money because you never hold your money. It's always going through the bank and you're enslaved to the banking system and the government. I think that better describes it. And who's to say what's dark? India's dark black market for all that time was just a free market of people trying to raise their families by selling fruits and vegetables and cloths and clothes and different things that are needed on the free market. But government said that's dark because we're not stealing all of our tax revenue from them, and they're criminals for daring to try and become wealthy without, giving the government a whole bunch of their money through extortion, so that we could spend it on terrible things and inefficient things that the free market can do better. I think that's you're going down a slippery slope when you call it dark money. Anyway, let's see what we got here. And Lao Tzu says, at least criminals can't counterfeit crypto. Exactly, unless it's a terrible cryptocurrency and you shouldn't be in it in the first place. But they can't counterfeit crypto. Pork Chop says, isn't money laundering mostly art and luxury items, though? No, not that I know of. And so be it if it is. If people want to protect their wealth from government theft to use in killing children overseas, then I don't blame them at all. But no, it's mostly people using fiat in cash, using businesses, shell corporations, using different assets and valuable goods and etc. I mean, charities, nothing wrong with it in my opinion. Why should we give giant centralized government a whole bunch of money to go and murder more children and make things more efficient and crack the whip on us and enslave us as free human beings? This giant organized crime cartel. So anyway, just looking through a few more things. James Welch, didn't the U.S. government send pallets of cash to Iran, aka terrorism? Yeah. And they've been arming and funding terrorists for years. Look at the military coup in Iran back in 1953, reinstating the Shah. Look at arming the Ba'athist Party against Iran in 1968, again in 1983, and that led to them actually using those weapons that they gave them to say they got weapons of mass destruction and go into Iraq. Afterwards, of course, they armed and funded Al-Qaeda as a Mujahideen in 1978 under Zbigniew Brzezinski and through the Trilateral Commission and CFR in order to bring down the Soviet Union through these like cave-dwelling people, which is just ridiculous. The Soviet Union brought themselves down via the fact that they were starving, and the U.S. made a huge deal with them back in World War II that allowed them to be such a huge entity. It really gave them a ton of land with a common enemy of the Nazis. Anyway, just communism, Nazism, socialism, fascism, all these things, all terrible on the scale of collectivism. And then, of course, they armed and funded the Taliban. The Taliban visited the White House in 1982, I believe, under Reagan. They armed and funded the Muslim Brotherhood. They armed and funded ISIS. They armed and funded the Syrian rebels through weapons stolen from Libya, including sarin gas, by the way, given to the Syrian rebels, also aka ISIS. They armed and funded the Viet Cong throughout FDR's reign with funding and arming of Ho Chi Minh. As they established their revolution down the line, ended up backfiring dramatically, or maybe exactly how they wanted it to be. So, yeah, the government creates terrorism. The government is terrorism. They've massacred hundreds of millions of people. No one has killed more people than government in the last century. So, that's a pretty important point to make. Just perspective. Let's see. Just looking at a few comments here, just scrolling up a bit. Randy McMurphy says, I love gold and silver and Bitcoin and Litecoin. The more the merrier. Diversify your wealth, folks. That's always a good idea. Let's see. Randy McMurphy says drug dealers love fiat. Absolutely. And drug dealers love the government because of the drug war, the laws in place, and the gun running into cartel territory in Mexico through Operation Fast and Furious and many more. The CIA's coke running and heroin running and going all the way to Afghanistan as well. All the problems that we see in life are usually created by the state in the first place, and then the state comes in as a savior to save us all from their own problems that they've created. So it's always interesting how that works. The organized crime cartel works by actually getting people to bow down on their knees to this entity that makes them unsafe in the first place under the guise of safety and help and prosperity and wealth. Same entity that makes everyone poor and, you know, broke and debt slaves. I mean, just insane. Carpet bombing Southeast Asia, Lita Blue says, yeah. Lots of comments here. I'm just trying to keep up with them here. Anyway, so I wanted to, once again, I will be interviewing the one and only J. Edward Griffin once again tomorrow on the Red Pill Expo and a host of other things. Make sure to tune in 2 days for that. I've got a video that I put up today with my uncle, who I'd interviewed, who is in Ottawa currently, taking on the government. Family members work in familiar ways. So there's that, and of course the Red Pill Expo, June 21st to 23rd, Spokane, Washington. Do not miss it. I want to see you guys there. I believe, a link below for that, and I will also give you my coupon code, which is Sigurdson, Sigurdson, which should give you about 10% off on the tickets. So just follow my link, get the tickets. I hope to see you there. I'm looking forward to it. I hope I traveled through a town near yours, because I will be going through, let's see, Fargo, Sioux Falls, Kansas City, Topeka. I will be going through Denver, Colorado, Edwards, Colorado, through northern Utah, Boise, Idaho, then up to Spokane, Washington, up the Columbia River. So I hope to bump into some of you on the way. I won't have time at a lot of those places to really hang out, but just kind of shoot through them. But all the same, I hope to see everyone there. Make sure to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, share the video. Help me keep this channel alive, because we are getting hit by all ends by not just the global establishment, but just the censors in general, the ADL and other groups that are demonetizing and hurting all of us in independent media a lot. And we depend on you, the individuals, to help us stay alive. So I can't thank you enough. I really enjoy talking with all of you, even when we disagree. And I will be back with more. Thank you, Lita, John, Brett, STEEMIT Surfer Review, Simon Atta, Dejuru, 84, Root Wave, Dan from Oregon. Oh, he says cover Pedogate or I'm unsubbing. I've been covering that issue for a long time. I don't know if you've been paying attention. And I will also be covering this latest story out of Tucson. But go ahead and unsub. I don't care. To each their own. Do whatever you want, man. You wake up in the morning and you decide what your day is going to be, and you make the change yourself, and you be your own person, and that's the way it goes. You as an individual are free to do whatever you wish to do in life, as long as you aren't aggressing against others. Simple as that. So I thank you, Dick Diddy. Thank you, Mick Anik. Let's see, Lao Su, and everyone else. Thank you for joining us today for another live stream, and I will be back with much more. Until next time, everyone, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.